I think it should be taught kind of like to both boys and girls, but I don't know. I feel like perhaps maybe like for younger kids, maybe like separate them into like different groups or different classes, provided that they receive the same sort of impartial information, will be a better way to go.
I think men should know about periods because it's an aspect of being human. And because in our current society, we are more accepting of the fact that men can have periods because of transgender rights and because of the fact that gender is something so fluid. And also the fact that even if they are potentially dating or just interacting with cisgender women, we need to have an understanding that this is just an aspect, it's natural.
I think that both genders should learn about it. It's not something that should happen separate because we interact together, so why shouldn't they know everything that's going on as well?
When you separate girls and guys that early on, it just already sends a message from the get-go that this is something that the other person isn't supposed to know about. It's something that you're not supposed to talk to them about. It's like a secret between the girls, and it doesn't have to be.
There's some studies that show college-age men say they never learned about menstruation, and there was a correlative relationship between not learning about menstruation and harassing or objectifying women who menstruate during high school and even in college. And so I think there might be a way to deal with menstrual harassment, which is a big deal, if we teach everybody about menstruation and teach it as a normal biological process.
For everybody, if you know the period much earlier, they know how to treat the menstrual product and how to respect. For instance, the boys will respect the girls in this period. They will choose the word very carefully when they talk to them, try to not irritate them.
Girls and other people who menstruate can menstruate as early as 8. So I think we need to start teaching about menstruation before people menstruate, so before 3rd grade. What I found in my research is that those young menstruators are really, really stressed out when they start to menstruate, and they haven't gotten any information at school and haven't gotten any information from home, and they don't know what to do.
It's going to be a little bit hard for schools to be able to say, okay, we'll introduce this earlier to catch people who get their periods earlier, but I think that maturity level and the understanding might not be there, and it might pass over people's heads. But there's also a possibility that sort of sex ed becomes something that happens both, happens in 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. And they sort of build up and say, oh, and now you're learning a little bit more about it as the years go on. I think that might be a pretty good and valuable way to just introduce the concepts, but also know that there's continuity to it and not just, okay, this is what periods are and you're on your own.
Don't say everything at once and kind of like gradually teach, because kids don't all like grasp everything in a short period of time.
I also think it would be very valuable is like if you were to find a way to implement these educational materials in an interactive and destigmatizing way, such that these conversations are normal to be had between girls, boys, adults, any kind of platform and any kind of context.
So we talked a little bit earlier about how menstruation has been sort of a taboo. And I think that spans across cultures and generations. So I think for everyone, but especially immigrants, 2nd generation, 1st generation immigrants, it is a really difficult topic to talk to parents about. So I do think it is on the public educational system to teach kids about it.
It's the parents' responsibility to allow their kids to learn from schools about menstruation, because I feel like schools are necessary in this like learning process to make it like at least make sure that everyone who is attending the school have like this like baseline of understanding of what menstruation is. Yeah, and I think parents should be there to support that and not let their kind of like judgments about menstruation get in the way of letting their like children learn more about it.
I'm a big advocate for like public entities stepping in where private entities have failed, and in this case it would have to we need to have this education in school.
I think that there's been a positive shift towards society realizing that like parents aren't entirely responsible for their children, and the fact that like we all have a burden as a society to like raise the young well, and it's not on like just the people who reproduced. I think that's a good thing that's happening. But I also think that it would be good if parents learned how to talk to their children about uncomfortable topics.
I think it needs to be something dual, where schools can kind of give the facts about it and give people information, and parents can talk to their kids in a way but make sure that it's known that it's normalized and that it's a normal part of life.
I think that parents do play a large part, and they should take most of the responsibility, but obviously if you don't have a parent there for you, the school should play a part, so it should come from both sides.